Hey everyone, this is Joey back at you again at another episode with the Sober Shift YouTube channel. I hope everyone had a great New Year's and had some great times with family and friends, got home safe, was able to see the ball drop. And if you didn't, that's good on you. Typically, for the past couple of years, I haven't stayed up until midnight, but last year the kids were excited, actually saw the ball drop, which was fun, but I didn't make it too much past that. Definitely got some sleep because I had a birthday party of all things to go to today for my youngest daughter. One of her friends was turning 5 years old, and the birthday party, it was a little bit nostalgic, was at Chuck E. Cheese. Didn't realize that Chuck E. Cheese was still a thing, but believe me, it is. And all the kids had a great time today. So that was an absolute blessing and a blast to be able to go to with my daughters to see them run around and play around with their friends in the new year. All right. So today I wanted to jump on here and I wanted to discuss something that's very near and dear to me. And that's the subject of being young and in recovery. So I think that a lot of times when people think of recovery, they think of older people that have experienced life and they've kind of got to their wits end and they're just like kind of throwing their hands up and they're like, "Hey, I can't do this anymore." But I think it's very important to note that recovery isn't just for those who have lived decades of struggle, right? It's for anyone ready to reclaim their life, no matter what their age is. I think that when I started my recovery journey, I was around 23 or 24 years old. And I'm super glad that I made that decision and I didn't get discouraged, especially when I was going into rooms of recovery, whether that be NA or AA, and seeing the age demographics of the people in that room. I was always the youngest by at least a decade. And at first, it was kind of intimidating, but also I just didn't relate a lot of times. But I think that when you listen to some of the statistics, right? I think that last time that I looked, 70% of people who have substance abuse issues started to use substances before the age of 25. And another statistic that I saw was that 1 in 5 young adults, people, between the ages of 18 and 25, they actually had admitted to using an illicit drug in the past month. So 20% of young adults between the ages of 18 and 25 self-admittedly reported using an illicit drug in the past month, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but when you begin to use or abuse substances at an early age, the chances of you developing an addiction later on in life skyrockets. So I think this is just an important topic to cover. And like I said, it's something that I focus on and it's very near and dear to me. So let me go ahead and actually share my screen. Get this fired up for you. All right. So young and sober, thriving in recovery before 30. There we have the mantra right here. Hashtag quit to not quit. So we want to surrender. And then once we surrender, we want to make sure that we don't use no matter what. So jumping in this video, some of the key takeaways that I want everyone to take out of this video would be some of the challenges being young and in recovery, and then link those to maybe some advantages that it has, some tips that I can share from personal experience, and just shot of hope. So here we are with a couple of different challenges. So one of the first challenge here is social stigma. So as I mentioned before, is breaking those stereotypes about addiction and recovering being, quote unquote, for older people. I know, like I mentioned, when I would go into the rooms of recovery, I mean, 9.9 times out of 10, I was the youngest person in there. I didn't really relate a lot to some of the stories and some of the issues or problems that other addicts were experiencing. But I think that the more I came and the more I was able to kind of thrust myself into the middle of those recovery rooms, people love to have some of my insight to what I was experiencing. And the rooms were just full of so much wisdom and experience, strength, and hope from all those, quote unquote, older people, that I was able to gain so much knowledge from them. So, as I mentioned before, addiction is not just for people who have had decades and were struggling through those decades, but it's also for it's for people at any age, right? No matter what age you are, if you have an issue, if you have a problem, it's super important that you let someone know that's close to you and seek some help that you know that you need. And also this kind of goes hand in hand with the social stigma, but like handling judgment or lack of understanding from peers. I know I got this a ton when I was younger and I was struggling with addiction. Just people didn't understand where I was coming from and they couldn't relate, especially peers that were the same age as me. Not every single person was experiencing the same things that I was experiencing. They were able to have one or two beers and stop. That wasn't my case. One was too many and 1,000 was never enough. That's always been my story. Once I got started, there was no off switch. So just being able to look at people confidently, let them know where you're at and exactly what you're going through without the fear of someone, judging you or taking that judgment to heart. Because no matter what, like people are going to judge you, right? People are going to hear something about you through the grapevine. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's none of your business what other people think about you. And that's what someone told me. That's what my first sponsor told me. It's none of my business what other people think about me. And that's helped me out tremendously. And also, it was kind of hard to hear when I heard it the first time, but I was always nervous and kind of socially anxious about walking into rooms of strangers and then to have to like maybe possibly speak in front of them. But he told me one time, he said, Joey, you're not that important. And I kind of like looked at him and I was like, what do you mean I'm not that important? He's like, nobody in this room is thinking about you. And once he said that, it kind of gave me this sense of confidence and just this like I was able to breathe because it's true, right? Like no one in that room, if you really thought about it, when I walked through that door, nobody was thinking about me. So it was kind of tough to hear at first, but it made a lot of sense when he kind of explained it. All right. So second challenge would be fear of missing out, FOMO. We all have it. So basically, like that feeling you get when you're left out of social events, parties, or activities. And this is something that I grappled with throughout my recovery because a lot of times people, you know, well, it wasn't that difficult at the beginning because I willingly was like, hey, I don't want to partake. I definitely want what recovery has to offer me. And I don't mind missing out on all these things. But, after a year of being clean and sober, I kind of wanted to go out and just hang out with people. They could drink if they wanted to. That was totally fine. I was starting to be a DD all the time, which I felt good about. I was, helping people get back home safely. But sometimes people they didn't understand, right? They felt, and good for them, they didn't want to drink in front of me. So I would oftentimes get left out of kind of joining in on social activities because they just didn't want to be a bad influence on me. Which is, like I said, which is good. But at the same time, the fear of missing out, I still have it sometimes, but I appreciate people who don't want to do those things in front of me. It shows me that they love me and it's a sign of respect. And at the end of the day, if I miss a party or a social event or an activity because there is going to be certain things there that I particularly am not going to partake in, it's not the end of the world. I've learned to have just as much fun with my family, just as much fun, with myself, being able to read a good book, exercise, develop some different hobbies. So the fear of missing out for me isn't that big of a deal now, but it was early on in my recovery. So I definitely can relate. And then identity formation. This one is super big for me. So when I was young and I had no idea who I was. I was still trying to figure it out. I was like a bag in the wind, right? I was just kind of floating around, kind of not knowing my place in the world. And a big thing to me was that I was kind of like a chameleon. I was always kind of shifting who I was depending on who I was hanging out with. And doing that for so long over the years, greater part of a decade, I would say, it really hindered my ability to really formulate a true identity and know who I was. Because I was always just like, if I was hanging out with this crowd, I was one way. And then if I was hanging out with another crowd, I was a different way. And I think this all kind of was rooted in my codependence and just my people pleasing nature. So this is very near and dear to me when it comes to the challenges because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know even where to begin. Like people would ask me what I wanted to do, and I was just like, I'm always like, it doesn't matter to me, whatever you want to do. So I think that can be a really big challenge when you're young and you're starting off in your recovery journey. It's just being able to really sit down and formulate what you like, what you don't like, and really form that identity. So those are some of the unique challenges being young and in recovery brings. So let's talk about some of the advantages, right? So being able to build, time to build, this is a super important opportunity for young people to create a strong foundation for your future. I can't emphasize that enough. Uh, I did not have a firm foundation whatsoever to build a future. My idea of success at a young age was I got to have a good job. I got to have, the most money. Got to have the nicer materialistic things. And I thought all those things were going to fix me, but I always, no matter what, and this is just my personal experience, right? I would get the new job that was paying more money with the shiny job title. I'd get the new car, whatever it was, and as soon as I got it, nothing changed. I was still feeling this big emptiness inside of me, and happiness was just super fleeting. Depending on the day, I would be happy for a little bit, but when I would achieve some of these materialistic worldly goals that I was setting for myself, I didn't get this like overwhelming sense of accomplishment that I typically thought that I was going to be able to get. So this is a great opportunity for you to build a strong foundation where you're just being healthy, you're building up your spiritual life, and you're just implementing great habits. So that way you're falling in love with the journey and not necessarily the outcome. And then also underneath the time to build is you get to experience life more fully and authentically at a young age. So I know like there are periods of my younger life where it's all a blur. For example, still to this day, my wife will show me, how on the iPhone it will show you like memories and pictures will come up. She'll show me some pictures of my youngest daughter between the ages of like 1 and 2 and be like, oh, can you remember she used to do this? Look at her. She was so cute. And I sit back and I kind of like nod, but inside of me, I'm feeling kind of terrible because I have no recollection of that time in my life. Like I missed some of the most important memories of my oldest daughter because of my addiction. And now I'm able to experience life a lot more fully and authentically with my kids, with my wife, with my family, with my friends because I'm present and I'm actually here. I'm not somewhere else. My mind's not obsessing and compulsing over, how am I going to get another hit or how am I going to get money to be able to afford this, et cetera, et cetera. So I think like that's a super good time to just experience life for what it is and not have to, look into the future or look in your past. Just be 100% present. Then after you see the second one, health benefits. So I mean, there's tons and tons of health benefits, not just physical health benefits, but also, mental health benefits that come from, you know, getting clean and being in recovery. So, like some of the physical health benefits that you'll be able to have are improved organ function, better sleep. Better sleep. It just does the body so much good. A boosted immune system, healthier skin and appearance. I can't even, I can harp on this one forever, but I look back at some of the pictures I was in my active addiction, and just these dark, dark circles underneath my eyes. My face was sunken in. I looked like a raccoon, and my weight was just fluctuating like crazy. I would get down like 20 pounds and then I'd shoot up 30 more pounds. It was absolutely terrible. So those are some of the physical health benefits of being in recovery at a young age. And then obviously for me, as I've shared before, a big part of my recovery has been anxiety. So improved mental health benefits, so improved cognitive function. A good example of this is when I was in my first recovery rehab facility, I was so bored. I did have a deck of cards, so I would start to play solitaire by myself. And throughout the first and second week of playing solitaire, I would stare at the cards and I would have moves in front of me and I just didn't see them. My problem solving skills and my focus, my brain was just hurt. And just being in that rehab facility for 52 days, my brain began to heal. And by the end of the time, I was playing solitaire so quickly and I was winning multiple games. And just the improvement from the first and second week of being there to the last week was there was absolutely noticeable. So improved cognitive function. Then you have emotional stability. I know for me, I was trying to hide that anxiety. I was trying to feel better. I was trying to fit in. I didn't want to feel depressed. I wanted to be happy all the time. So my answer was just using, using, and using. And all I was doing was really putting a band aid over a bullet hole and not really fixing the core issues. And it was just amplifying all those different emotions. I was having so much anxiety. I was so depressed. My mood swings, I was chewing my kids' heads off. I was chewing my head off. I was an emotional wreck. So emotional stability, 100%. And then renewed sense of purpose. So I'm able to rediscover passions. I'm playing pickup basketball again. I'm playing softball. I'm playing golf, and also not just rediscovering passions, but allowing yourself to find new passions. I've got new friends that are awesome. They're absolutely awesome. I've never been hunting. I've always wanted to go duck hunting, for instance. And I just was able to go duck hunting for the first time last week on Christmas Eve because my friends invited me. And being clean and sober provided me that opportunity to say yes. And I actually showed up and we had a great time. And it's actually, I think I love it. It's going to be one of those things that I'm going to try out for the next upcoming years. So that right there in itself, just a renewed sense of purpose. And then, so you got your physical and mental, and then, your emotional and social benefits. So stronger relationships, building healthier connections with them, and increased self-esteem, my self-worth. Oh, it just feels so good to, have this self-worth from being able to actually look at myself in the mirror. I know I was watching a documentary one time, and it was about a Boston Celtics basketball player from Massachusetts, and he made this comment in the documentary where he wouldn't even brush his teeth in the mirror because he couldn't stand the sight of himself. And that's exactly where I was at. That hit me to the core when I heard that. I could not even look at myself in the mirror because I did not recognize the person that I had become. So the health benefits, mental, physical, emotional, it's absolutely amazing, and it can provide you a life and really build that firm foundation on what you want to build your life on. And then third over here, resilience and wisdom. So as I mentioned before, A lot of what recovery has given to me is not just how to not use drugs, but it's how to live my life day by day. I have gained so much wisdom that I otherwise would not have if it hadn't been for the people in recovery and the rooms of recovery and just the community in general. Just like kind of examples of that, it'd be like, anxiety, right? It's when you're looking into the future, and then depression is when you're looking in the past. You can't change the future. You can't change the past. The only thing you have is the right here and the right now and the present. That's been a big part of my recovery is just trying to live in the present, taking it one day at a time. When I look out and I say, oh man, I can't ever drink again, or I can't ever use drugs again, that feeling is super overwhelming. And I just, I never was able to, it wasn't a long term thing for me to think like, oh, I can never do these things again. But if you just focus on today, you can, I mean, if you just, I remember the early parts of my recovery, it was every single second, then it was every single minute, then it was every hour. And then eventually, I think like 7 or 8 months into recovery, I remember it was past dinner time, and I sat down on the couch and I was like, I had an epiphany. I was like, I haven't thought about using all day today. And that feeling and just that realization, oh man, I remember like it was yesterday. It was such a great feeling. So the resilience and wisdom, just being able to strengthen yourself and just gain all these different, not just skills of not using drugs, but everyday life skills. Absolutely a blessing. So staying strong in recovery as a young person. So some of the tips that I wanted to leave everyone here with is number one, build a support system. Super, super important. You have a picture of here of my family. My wife is probably my strongest support system. Actually, what I want to do eventually is, I want to have interviews on this YouTube channel. But I think the first interview I want to do is interview my wife, because I think it would be a good perspective to have her come in and kind of say like what it was like living with myself during active addiction, what the things that she was experiencing. And I think that would be a great episode. But yeah, my wife's support system, but also getting a sponsor, getting accountability partners, get into some type of support group, whether that be AA, NA. I know that I'll share some different links in the description of this video, because there's tons and tons of resources out there for younger people in recovery. Just to name a few, like online communities like the Phoenix with sober active community events like yoga, climbing, running. You have like Reddit recovery communities that you can look up, programs specifically for young adults. There's like a Sober Grid mobile app that connects individuals in recovery and allows young adults to find peers nearby, which is super, super cool. And then you have, different books that I can recommend, and different social media accounts with like hashtags that you can follow, hashtag sober youth, hashtag recovery journey, just to name a few. And honestly, like local support groups. So many cities have youth focused AA or NA meetings. And I know my time with Celebrate Recovery, they do the same. They have an offshoot of programs tailored for young adults. And then faith-based resources, Teen Challenge. It's a Christian discipleship program focusing on addiction recovery and life skills. Absolutely amazing. But like I said, I'll share all those in the description of this video so everyone can look those up as well. And then setting boundaries. So this is me in Mexico on me and my wife's 10-year wedding anniversary. Praise God. And that's an iguana that I had nothing, I didn't want anything to do with. So I had to set some boundaries between me and that fella. But being able to navigate relationships with peers who still use substances, being able to say no to certain things, not having that FOMO of missing out on social activities or parties or things of that nature, but not just saying no in a mean way, learning to say no with confidence. I still struggle with setting boundaries. It's super, super hard for me, and I struggle with this from time and time again, but you know what you want to accomplish, you know where your life is heading, and you know what you need to do to stay clean. So being able to surround yourself, I mean, at the end of the day, like we say, people, places, and things, and it's law of attraction, right? It's who you're hanging out with. Whoever you're hanging out with is who you're going to end up being like. So surround yourself with strong people in their recovery and lean on them for guidance and being able to set boundaries on anyone else who is outside of that circle. Creating healthy habits. So that's me running an 8-mile trail run. I don't know exactly what I'm doing with my face right there. And of course, it looks like I'm in 2008 with the wired headphones. My wife makes fun of me all the time, but I just can't stand they always fall out of my ears for some reason, the wireless ones. But being able to exercise, this is a big one for me. I play softball. Play pickup basketball. I'll do some runs to 5K, 10Ks, trail runs. I joined a CrossFit gym about 4.5 years ago. Just turning those bad habits into healthy habits, and then finding hobbies. Like I said, rediscovering hobbies, finding new hobbies. I mean, the world just opens up to you when you're clean and sober. It's awesome. And then volunteering, right? So I know that I volunteer. I used to volunteer. I did a short stint of going out and volunteering at a recovery high school here in Raleigh, North Carolina called the Monarch Academy, where I was going to help young adults ages 14 to 18 with the subject of math. Absolutely love doing that. So being able to volunteer and give back, be of service, that's an important important just foundational piece of anyone's recovery is being of service. And then embracing your journey. So being able to be confident in who you are. Everyone is different. Everyone has different experiences, but being able to be confident in your own skin and not judge your insides by other people's outsides. Because like I said, as my sponsor once told me, I'm not that important. People aren't really going out of their way to think about me all the time, even though I personally think they might be. That's not true. And using your story for good. I think that, especially being young and in recovery, we need more people to step up and share their experience, strength, and hope. And that way, younger people who are struggling can relate more to us. And that's a big reason that I've started this YouTube channel, is just not only to reach younger people, but just to kind of break that stigma of addiction and be open and honest. And hopefully people come in and they feel confident to share with me some of their experiences. So what I hope is that you guys will like, comment, subscribe, especially comment on this video. I want to hear about your experiences with maybe being young in recovery, or like I said last video, I started a email, the sobershift@gmail.com. If you don't feel comfortable commenting on the YouTube videos and you want to reach out and ask some different questions, I'm checking that email every day. Please shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you guys. The more likes, comments, and subscribers we can get on this channel, the more good we can do, and hopefully the more we can reach to that helpless addict who's still struggling. But if no one's told you today that they love you, I love you. I hope you have a great 2025. Happy New Year. And I can't wait to next video, and I'll talk to everybody then.